All right. Well, I don't know if you noticed, I actually added a song to the list since we last talked. On the very bottom there.
Jove?
Yeah.
Did you sneak it in past the where is it? Venera.
Yes, Venera. And
okay.
So I don't know much about Venera. They're brand new. I don't know if their new album is dropped yet, or they've just dropped a couple singles from it. And I toyed with the idea of listening to the first track that came out, but it was a little too ambient for me at that moment to pick it as a listening song for us. Even though ambient music's fine, there's nothing wrong with ambient music. I love ambient music and make ambient music. I just was feeling something. I wanted something a little more exciting, and then they released this song, and this song is almost exactly where I wanted the other song to be, where it wasn't, So, which has got me incredibly excited for the rest of the album, because the first song had me marginally excited. Now this marginally excited, but this one has me completely excited about listening to this song and listening to the rest of the album when it comes out. So it's an Ipecac artist. And like I said, it's a debut. Like I said, the first song I heard was completely instrumental. This song features a guest vocalist. And I have the name here. It's like Vows, spelled Vowws. And again, I don't know anything about Vows either. I'm pretty sure she's a female by the sounds of it. And the thing I loved about Vows, which is going to make me sound maybe dated or like a music elitist or something. But when she sings, it sounds like she's just singing. There's no lisp. There's no bizarre inflection. It sounds like her voice. And I've found most young female singers nowadays have to do some sort of weird contortion to their voice, which I find completely distasteful. I can't stand it, because it just, and I don't know if it's just, like I said, is that showing my age? Is that showing my distaste or my, a thorny side of myself, or am I onto something? I don't know. Judging by your nodding, I think you agree,
yeah.
Or at least you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah. Yeah, I do.
Yeah. And it seems like a weird thing to have to point out and praise. It's like when I'm driving and someone uses their blinker and signals, I want to wave to them and thank them for following the rules of the road, because no one else seems to want to. But so I haven't downloaded the song yet or bought it on Bandcamp or anything, just because it's brand new. So all I have is the YouTube link of it, and it's the video of the song. And I think the video is worth watching if you're set up to watch a video while listening, if you desire. I don't think it's going to add or take away from the song in any way, but the video I found incredibly fascinating too. Just visually, it's not a labor intensive video. There's not a lot going on, but it's a delight on the eyes, or a terror, depending on how you look at things. It might be terrifying.
Ooh. Right then.
Yeah. So, I challenge you at home, and I challenge you, Perry.
Oh yes. Now that I see the video, I did watch a bit of this earlier. I did. I saw this
based on the list, or you just saw it recommended to you because you're an Ipecac fan now?
I subscribe to Ipecac, so this came up in my feed, and I did watch the beginning of it, so I do have some prior knowledge of it. But I won't let that. I know what you mean about the video, by the way. Yes, the video is. Yeah, it's kind of disturbing, and I kind of watched about a minute of it, I think, and then I went, okay, I'm going to back out of this because I don't know what's going on here. So yeah, I'm going to listen to it. I won't watch the video. I will listen this time.
No worries.
Right. Okay, right.
I might listen then too, because I've already seen the video, so there's no
Cool.
point in me actually watching it. So I'll join you in that regards. All right, so this is Hologram by Venera from Ipecac Records.
Flicker
Yeah, there's some beautiful ambiences on that, isn't there? There's some beautiful sort of ambient kind of filling going on in the background there. And you're right, her voice is very listenable. It's the kind of voice, I know exactly what you mean about those kind of, those affected voices. And it doesn't really matter whether it's male or female, but there's a kind of, you listen to a new singer and you go, yeah, you're doing somebody else. And so it is quite refreshing to hear that presented in such a way. She's got a lovely range, she's got a lovely tonal quality to the voice. Her diction's really good, her emphasis is all brilliant, and she blends in and out of the backing beautifully as well, which is something that's quite a brave thing to do, because most singers and most people who produce singers want them to be up front, want them to be the centre of attention, and in that track she's not the centre of attention. She kind of is, and then she isn't. And the percussion, I think it sounds as if it's all electronic. I'm guessing it's modern electronics, modern synthesizers. And as I was listening to it, I'm hearing some of those tones that you're mucking about with just now, those big meow kind of, and I thought, that's why Chris loves this, because it's got that in it, plus this beautiful female voice. Yeah, it's got a kind of a dark tone to it, which is evident from the video, which I didn't watch then. I just, as I say, I saw the beginning of it earlier. But it's got a dark tone, but it's also got threads of light through it, which are beautiful. It's like it reminds me of water flowing on a sunny day, but under the trees. That kind of feel to it. It's got that liquid kind of that. Yeah, I can't describe it. I struggle for words at times to describe music because it does something to my brain, but I can't get the words out. But yeah, it's a really, really beautiful track, and as you say, if the rest of the album lives up to that, it'll certainly be worth another investigate.
Absolutely, and I'm glad you recognized the what I recognized in it inside of my music, because there was whenever I'm doing something I feel is kind of, it's at least fresh for me, and then I hear it fresh someplace else, I feel like I'm on a wavelength that someone else is also on. So I feel like this silent kinship with Venera that I don't always feel. Same way I felt when I heard your music, or the same way I felt when I listened to like the psychedelic porn crumpets the first time, or I don't know. There's always, they're few and far between, because it has to be happening simultaneously. It can't, to me, it's like if I sound like a band I'm hearing from 30 years ago, I think that I'm ripping these guys off in some way. But if it's happening at the moment, you're going like, did we fall in love with that sound at the same moment by ourselves in our own studio? Do
you think it's the same instrument they're using? Do you think they've got a polybrute or something like it going on in the background there?
You know what? I didn't get that feeling, because when I do hear polybrute in places, and I'm like, that's a polybrute, like for sure. And I didn't get that there. Like, to me, there's the stuff that reminds me of my music, I still have a question mark with it, because it doesn't sound like they came about it the same way I came about it in my mind. So which I also find intriguing, when people land in the same spot but from two different directions, is even more. But I could be wrong. It could be a polybrute, because I do find that polybrute has a very distinctive sound, and a lot of times I try and run away from that sound, just because I don't want somebody to hear it and be like, oh, that's a polybrute. But sometimes that polybrute sound is just perfect, and I find it just enthralling, and there's something very magical and like, I don't know what it is, but there's like Arturia has a sound that they've built into all of their products. And I can't put my finger on it, but it's there. And it's, you get that same sound in a micro brute, in a matrix brute, in a, on pigments, whether I'm using, it's, if I'm using a soft synth or a hardware synth by Arturia, I find there's a characteristic that's built in somewhere in either the filters or the envelopes, or one of all of the above, the way the delay reacts. Because they do it all, it's all their own. Like they don't like use. Actually, well, I guess they do use filter. They got names for their different filters. Like they say this is Steiner filter, this is a ladder filter. I've heard the term ladder filter used on Moog products, but I really don't know the difference.
Yeah, I think those are types of filters rather than brands. That's sort of describing what the filter It's describing what the filter's doing, I think, rather than being a brand. But or maybe it's the inventor of the filter or something like that. Yeah. Well, that's interesting.
That's what I made me
it's interesting that you would you can spot that sound. I'm a bit like that with the original Wasp. Whenever I hear an original Wasp, it just cries out to me. You don't hear them very often now, but having had one and worked with it so closely, a lifetime ago now, it still does that to me. That's interesting. Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, I really like that track. It was it's good.
I'm glad you dug it.
I'm going back to my original list, which I abandoned last time, and got myself into horrible trouble because I didn't know anything about the tracks that I was wanting to play. So I did take notes for these other tracks, and I think the one that I would like to play next is Melting by the album's Melting by Fractal Dragon. And the track we're going to play is Victorious Sqwunch. But having taken notes about Mr. or Ms. Dragon, there's not much to say. What do I know? They are from Hawaii, which is sympathies at the moment for all the crap that's going on there. I don't know whether they're affected by that or not. I noticed they had something new coming out, so they are still on the go. But they're one of these artists that's very reluctant to tell us anything. So what you get is this wonderful mix of electronics and organic sounds. They're not organic sounds, but they're somehow organic. They become organic somehow. I don't really know how. And for us, I think, for you and I, it's what I would call, it's just ear candy. It cleans your brain out every time you listen to Fractal Dragon. There's something. Well, listen to the title of this, Victorious Sqwunch. I mean, what does that even mean? I don't think even they would know. That maybe it means something to them, but to me it means nothing at all except those sounds, which go brilliantly with this track. So we're going to do that just now. We're going to play Victorious Sqwunch by Fractal Dragon from the album Melting, available as ever on Bandcamp.
Yeah, you're definitely right. Ear Candy. Because that was on your original list, I did listen to it a couple times preparing for the first couple Eyebrows, and I hadn't listened to it since. And I kept meaning to go back to Fractal Dragon because that was one of my favorite things on your list. You know, I just love the notion of fractal things, and I like the album artwork, and the music is tantalizing. And it did the same thing to me now. It was doing to me back then, which is I have a hard time focusing while listening to the song because I start off focusing, and then there's this like it disarms you, and it kind of like allows you to sort of drift away. You know, it's very meditative, and for most of the song, I was thinking about building this desk that I'm sitting at. Like I remember building it, you know, and thinking about like the intention on where I want to put the microphone stand and where I wanted rack mounted gear and everything, and where I was going to put my computer and it was and how I was going to paint it, like all these things going through my head. It was like I was reliving that journey, and it was like the music was part of like the mission, like what I was trying to achieve. But on the music though, I found it very catchy. You know, the rhythm was pleasing and easy to follow, and the stereo effects with some of the percussion were great. You know, and same with like this, you know, like the bubbly sounds and those little prickly like comey sounds that were just drifting from right to left. And yeah, that's a wonderful song, and I definitely need to listen to more Fractal Dragon. Like I definitely that's like the kind of music I'd like to listen to a whole album in a sitting, likely, you know, and just plow through it almost.
Yeah, a lot of it is like that. A lot of it is, like you say, drifting. I did exactly the same thing. As I was listening to it, there were some sounds that caught my ear particularly, but for some reason I found myself looking down at my notes and thinking about the next track that I'll be talking about, which if we get to it I will be doing. And I suddenly thought, this isn't deep listening. I'm not deep listening at the moment. I'm surface listening. But it's the kind of music that you do feel as though you're surfing on the top of it somehow. It's a psychological thing that it does to you. Although there's plenty of stuff going on, there's a lot going on in it. And if you sit and listen to it at any particular moment, there's all these little squeaks and squooks and blops and bleeps, and there's a couple of bass notes that make your hair stand on end. But at the same time as requiring all that attention, it's also allowing you just to drift off if you want to, which is a testament to something, isn't it? I mean, it's wonderfully friendly music that way, I think.
Yes. Yeah, it is. You're right. I couldn't put it better myself. That was great. I was so looking forward to hearing that song too again. So that was perfect. That was. Now we've got to think about where I want to go from there, you know, because it's maybe I should have planned but I like the reaction to it too, because I usually have something in mind after that, you know, and
can I make a suggestion?
Absolutely.
It's been a while since we did one of yours, and there's a track of yours on the spreadsheet there from the Vitamin D album.
Synthrise.
Which I think would be a good follow up to that.
All right.
If you're up for it.
Oh, absolutely. You know, I love that song. So my album Vitamin D. I don't know if you've talked about this album on the podcast or not. I know we talked about it on my radio show, so we'll delve into it as if I haven't talked about it here. Either way, the Vitamin D album, we talked about the Polybrute earlier, was a product of me learning how to use my Polybrute, because it's a deep diving kind of synthesizer, you know, and it requires that like an amount of time, like the time it takes to learn how to program a synthesizer like the Polybrute. It's like learning a new instrument, and more than like you already have to know your theory, now you have to learn how to operate the synthesizer, you know. So as I was journeying through that operation, as you're learning what every knob does and how the modulations work, you're finding all these sounds, you know, every step you take, you're inventing a new patch and a new sound that you know you're never going to probably find again because you're on this ignorant journey, you know. So I found that so inspiring. So basically every day I would just like program a patch, and my journey through the patch or the 3 patches or something I would try and build, I'd write a song with them, you know. And at the time, I was also making an album called Dark Days, which Dark Days came out, or it was recorded in conjunction with my album Broken Songs by a Broken Man, which was a very busy time for me musically, and it's because it was catharsis for me, and I was putting myself through self-therapy of, trying to escape a dark pain. But when as my album about my pain started feeding into this weird political thing I was singing about, which ended up being Dark Days, I was also getting into analog synthesizers, because that was part of my healing process, was analog synthesizers. So, and Dark Days started off with me using a single monophonic synthesizer, my Pro 1 synth, and the longest song in the album is just that synthesizer. But as I pushed through and I was working and I started acquiring more gear throughout that album, it started building, and that's when the Polybrute came into like my life, and the Vitamin D was meant to be like this, like, cure for the sickness that I was feeling, because I was sick of a lot of things, and this is all during 2020, 2021, right? So a lot of people were sick of a lot of things for a lot of reasons throughout all of that time, right? So and I was one of those people, and I had my own personal struggle on top of that, which felt like it was being smeared and blurred by everybody else's public struggle, which was, it was gross. So this album was sort of like my own workaround musically. Like, I was cathartically trying to make myself a musical cure after spitting out musical mud for so long. But this journey with the synthesizer was all happening hand in hand. It was the first time, and I don't exist this way now, where I actually had a window in my studio, right? So I could look outside and I could see the sun. And if I saw the sun, it would light something up in me. Like when I actually had the sun rays like enter my eyes, I remember feeling it, like there was a warmth, like a ball coming out of me. And I just felt like I'd feel so happy I could cry, and I would cry, not just could cry, I would cry. And I did this. So yeah, that's where this happened. And that's where like the idea of the titles came from, and because I was being inspired by the sunlight and the darkness and the absence of light at the same time as the presence of light, and the way the light made me feel at different times of the day. Right. So I just thought, regardless of how people feel about what a God is, and, we talk about all sorts of heavy stuff here, but to me, the true God is the sun. And vitamin D is what it offers us, vitamin D is actually from inside of us, but the sun activates that, and this is everything about it. Right. And it's to me, this album shouldn't exist. This isn't a Death by Design album that would intentionally happen. It's a happy accident, like a Bob Ross painting, and, it's just, I don't know. To me, it's the crowning jewel of my discography. Like, to me, if someone were to say to me, play me your best music, this is probably what I'd play them. But I have to warn them that if you want more of this, good luck, because I don't know if it's ever going to happen again. But that's the best way I can describe this. This is the first song of the album. It wasn't the first song I recorded, but the reason it's the first song is because it's called Synthrise. And to me, it was written while I watched the sunrise one morning, from with the Polybrute under my fingers. So anyway, Vitamin D, Synthrise, Death by Design.
yes. I can feel the vitamin D coursing through my veins at present.
Awesome.
Probably because I take a vast amount of vitamin D every day, because living in Scotland you have to. That's quite wonderful. That's really good. I remember listening to that before and really enjoying it, and also this time. The obvious points of comparison, because this is what we have to do, we have to make points of comparison. The obvious points of comparison are the early 70s, when the early to mid 70s, when synthesis was becoming a tool that huge numbers of musicians were using, and some were making a living just doing that, like Tangerine Dream, Jean-Michel Jarre, Kraftwerk, all these kind of bands. But the problem for all of them was that they were dealing with technology that was a bitch to deal with. It really was. It was impossible to deal with. Things went out of tune. I saw Kraftwerk's whole show descend into chaos at one point because of that. That was about 1982, but they were still using the same things. And what's happened since then is, for a lot of people who dabbled about with it, because a lot of musicians, a lot of guitarists tried guitar synths and all that kind of thing, and they had a brief dalliance with it and decided it was no good. So there was a whole period when only those guys who had originally started with the synthesis and kept going were the ones who were using it, and everybody else sort of abandoned it because of the problems. And what those guys found is, over the years, synthesizers became better and better and better, and easier to use, and produced more and more magical sounds, until you get to the point today when there's a kind of revitalization or a reinvigorment of the synthesizer scene because of plugins and things like that, where people are once again finding all of these amazing sounds, and you're doing it through a piece of hardware, a wonderful piece of hardware called the Polybrute, which I think is a fantastic name. And that's the one that's got the hexagonal knobs, isn't it? I remember talking about that on the radio show.
Yeah.
I'm very impressed by any knob that's different from all the sort of standard knobs. It's a wonderful looking thing as well, and it's all to those who don't know what we're talking about. The front board of it, the fascia of it, is all knobs with diagrams of what all the knobs do, but you still have to understand how the routing works and everything. All of which has nothing to do with the music. But the music that you've got here is the real gift, because it's not just the sounds. It's almost like a kind of a minimalistic classical approach. It's like, imagine you had instead of an orchestra, you had 3 violins, or a violin, a viola, and a cello, something like that, trying to fill an arena or a theatre. They couldn't do it. They would have to amplify it, and then all that intimacy of the acoustic sound would go away. And what synthesis lets you do is, synthesis and effects and all that kind of stuff, it lets you take those, if you like, almost Renaissance or Baroque ideas of linear harmony, and it lets you make those big. And I think that's what you did here. There's a couple of points where I think I'm expecting the music to continue in the vein it continues, and then you just drop in another note, which hints at a whole different landscape of harmony, and you don't make a big deal out of it. You don't then go off into an extemporization like so many people do. You just let that sit, and then continue slowly, and then once you've said that, you let it sit, and then you come in with something else. And I think the track's in probably about three different parts, and the sequency part at the end, I love that, because what's the great temptation there? What's everybody heard a million times before? The kick drum comes in, and then the snare drum comes in, and then the hi-hat tickles away, and it all sounds great, but it completely destroys that you put in there, that thing that you've got there. And then there's these little sounds that come in from time to time over that sequence, which are they're humorous. I don't know why they're humorous. I mean, is the sunrise humorous? Do you laugh at the sunrise? I don't know. You cry at the sunrise? Maybe I'm laughing uproariously next to you. I don't know. But it's just a wonderful piece. I think the whole album is like that. It's got light and shade, and it's got all the sort of different because you go all the way through to You've got one called Synth Set, which is a play on words, obviously. Then you've got Dusk and the Witching Hour. So you do go from the light through the dawn, in the dawn and the midday into the sort of darkness and beyond. So there is lots of colour in there. But I love that track because it just embodies all the things you were talking about. The idea of, if you were looking for a physical manifestation of God in your life, as the ancients did, it's up there in the sky, isn't it? It's burning there in the sky, and it's beneficent. And okay, if you're Scottish, it gives you horrible sunburn, but we can forgive that. It's that's our fault as much as it's. But yeah, I love that track. I love this album. I think you're probably right. I think it is a jewel in your crown. It's not the only one, but it is a jewel in your crown. It's the one that sparkles the brightest, probably. I would think it's the one you would know if you did a kind of leaf through your catalogue and listen to little bits here and there. This is the one that would be, I think, stand apart from all the rest as not having any peers. It's at the moment it's alone. I hope you go on to do something else with this ethos in mind. Yeah, I really like the whole album, but that track in particular I really enjoy. So that's good. I
am actually working on an album that it doesn't sound anything like that, but it embodies the same kind of wonderment and pure sense of a reaction to an emotion that isn't caked in like misery, because that's my emotion most. So
is that going to be the title of the album, Caked in Misery?
No, well, it's not Caked in Misery, but it's
all right. Sorry.
It's so far the working title, and I think it might be end up calling this, is I'm just calling it Nova Scotia Songs, because they're
right. Yes, you mentioned that before. Yeah, good.
Yeah, and I think there's going to be songs about my positive experience here in Nova Scotia, for the most part, mostly positive.
Yeah,
but just
great. Yeah, I'm looking forward to that. I really am. I'm genuinely looking forward to that. There's a great movement just now in stoner rock. Stoner rock's far from being a flash in the pan that's kind of disappeared. Stoner rock seems to be going from strength to strength, probably driven by the plant that fuels it, I would think, to some extent. And there's a lot of really, really good stoner rock now crossing over into progressive rock and heavy rock, whatever you want to call it. The labels don't matter. And for some reason, Italy and Greece seem to be the places that I'm getting a lot of that stuff from. So I'd like to go with half a gram of Soma, and the album's called Groove is Black, and the track's called Gloomy Eggplant. And I just wanted to read something that they wrote, which I thought kind of illustrates the mindset. Now, bear in mind, this is written by a group, someone who's probably not an English speaker as their first language, but nevertheless I thought this was great, so I'll read that. So this is sort of sets up this track on the album. After the second sun abruptly forced its mass in, the now binary star thrust into a violent spiral orbit towards its imminent destruction. Captive to constant daylight and under the heat of 349 PW, the gigantic entities were left stranded on the desert planet that, due to gravitational distortions, awkwardly resembled familiar vegetables. Moments before reaching their kindling point, they swallowed their last drop, their bodies burst into flames, and their psyche into the black. So this is half a gram of Soma with Gloomy Eggplant from the album Groove is Black.
If you've taken acid, you know that one of the trippiest parts of when you're on any psychedelic is transitioning, when you go inside to outside or outside to inside. Psychedelics is transitioning.
Oh,
very good. Yeah, I dig that. I love the snare drum. Like I say, right off the bat, the snare drum was fantastic. I don't know if the guys were using a sample or if that was of their own doing, but fantastic job, boys, on that on that snare drum. But I know that's not the what makes that song awesome. That was great. I really enjoyed it. Like I was feeling off the hop, like I was kind of like I was getting a bit of a yawn, thinking like, yeah, this just sounds like generic stoner rock. But when they had that like moment as they were building up and they let out with that big yell that wasn't sustained very long, there was a lot of reverb on it, but it didn't hang around very long. It was so tasteful and so perfect, and I'd never heard anything quite like that before, like done in that way. And it made me realize that these guys aren't joking around. Like they really understand, to me anyway, the way I understand stoner rock to be. It's because stoner rock, to me anyway, there's something about stoner rock there's a level of repetition and whatnot, almost like country music we're talking about, where there's these certain like things you got to do, to be stoner rock, and you can step away from it only so much before you're not stoner rock anymore, and these guys knew how to work within those working boundaries and still be very unique, I think, and do something that's special. That's, there's a reason why, because I started writing a stoner rock album myself about 10 years ago, and I still haven't finished it yet because I got sick of the music before I was done making it, because I felt like I wasn't doing enough to make it worthwhile. Like I wasn't good enough to be a stoner rock album, So it was weird because from a layman's standpoint, stoner rock might not be special. I've heard people compare it to jazz music, but you have to really dig in to see where the comparisons come from. It's not the chord choices that are jazzy or the rhythms that are jazzy. It's almost like the boundaries you have to work within and then do something that's special that makes it jazzy, And these guys know that. They get those rules and they know how to break them and how to work them. Or I'm wrong. I don't know. And I know nothing about stoner rock.
No, I think you're right. I think the great thing about what I understand of stoner rock is when they do break. First of all, they do the stoner rock part of it perfectly. The big guitars, the kind of groove. Their album is called Groove is Black. So that's. And it took me a long time to figure out that the album cover is actually a picture of a gigantic aubergine. I didn't look at it very closely. I thought it was just some weird shaped rock in space, but it's a gigantic aubergine in space. Half a gram of Soma. They're right in the groove. But what's brilliant is that they don't stick there. They kick it around and they change it. And I like that of any genre. I just, growing up with Zappa and all that kind of stuff, you don't really own. I don't really feel as though I own any genres. I don't feel invested in them or that. But I understand this is stoner rock, and I think it's just, as you say, just a great example of just kicking it out a wee bit. And that bit, as you say, that scream when it came in, I thought of you immediately because I thought, well, that's the kind of thing that Chris will love because Chris can do that voice. I can't do that voice. Chris can do that voice, so he's going to love that bit. So when you mentioned that, I went, yep, he likes that bit. Yeah. That might have been why I chose the track, I think. I don't know. Maybe. But yeah, I love that. I love all their stuff. I've got 3 or 4 of their CDs, and it's all great.
It is. I have to dig more into them because I tread lightly with stoner rock because of the, I've wasted a lot of time trying to enjoy certain stoner rock acts, but, and it's weird because I don't get the hierarchy of it. That's why I'm saying I'm not sure if I'm right or wrong, because one of the greatest stoner rock bands of all time, I think if you were to ask a connoisseur, would be Sleep. Right. And I don't know if you listen to Sleep or not, but I really can't stand those guys. And their most popular song, or I shouldn't say popular, but when people talk about Sleep and what makes them the greatest stoner rock band, they talk about the song called Dope Smoker. And it's like an hour and 16 minutes long. Oh, and at no point do I find myself going like this is a really good song, even though it's an hour and 16 minutes. Like I find myself like it sounds like it could easily be a 5-minute song, but they decided to make it an hour and 16-minute long song. And I went to see them live just because I really wanted to kind of get it, and people were going nuts and they played the song. And I'm like, no, like don't play it, please. Yeah, I went outside for like 3 smoke breaks during the song, you know, and was outside with other fans going like, "What the hell?" And they're like, "I know, it's, you know, but you get it, right?" And I'm like, "No, I don't. I really don't. I don't even know why I'm here, but I tried. I really did." but Soma, half a gram of Soma. Those guys are not Sleep. So if you're a stoner rock fan, and Sleep is a band that makes you kind of ill, these guys aren't them. So I'm glad. Now, I got a message from the big giant head.
The big giant head.
Did you ever watch the show Third Rock from the Sun?
Oh yes, I know. Oh yes.
Okay,
yes.
Okay. So you know the reference.
I know who the big giant head is. I know who he is. Yeah.
Apparently dinner's going to be another 25 minutes or so. So we have time for at least one more track.
Cool. Let's go on then. Let's forge on and see what we can get done.
Exactly. All right. So, you know what? I'm going to recommend one of these songs. It might actually probably does butt up to this one nicer because this is. I'm very rarely in the mood for music like this, but I have been recently, which is why it's in the list. So if we don't listen to it now or soon, we might never listen to it. And there's 2 songs I'm looking at right now, and I'm kind of bouncing back and forth between them. And it's either the Eagles of Death Metal or the La Butcherettes. I'm not sure if you're familiar with either one of those bands.
I know nothing of either. You'll have to be my guide.
Because I don't know. One's more lighthearted and one's a little more dark. So let's go with the lighthearted one then, because it's probably the one I'd least likely want to listen to again in the near future. And that's this Eagles of Death Metal we're going to go with. So Eagles of Death Metal, they're a band from they're in the desert rock desert rock vein, which is like kind of a spin-off or in relation to stoner rock, right? So that's why I figured these guys might go well together as well. So, and I'm just trying to pull the thing up here because for some reason my computer's being weird here. I don't know why, because I just usually click on it and it works. But so these guys are the brainchild of 2 musicians, Jesse Hughes and Josh Homme, or Josh Homme. I'm not sure how to pronounce him. He's the lead singer and the chief guy behind Queens of the Stone Age and Caius and the Desert Sessions. So I'm a huge fan of Josh Homme because I like all those projects. So this is kind of another one of those spin-offs that kind of came around in the late 90s, around the beginning of the Queens of the Stone Age thing happening. And the name, I don't even know where they get the name Eagles of Death Metal because they don't sound anything like Eagles. They definitely aren't death metal. I'd consider these guys, like I said, they're like a bit of like a desert rock thing, but they're not desert rock either. They're like desert rock adjacent. They're garage rock. They're kind of like they have like a very dancey vibe to them. Like you kind of want to get up and shake when you listen to this music. Most of their songs are only 2 or 3 minutes long. You can tell they're probably heavily influenced by like Iggy Pop and the Ramones. And I've been paying attention to the Ramones more recently just because I watched a really terrible YouTube video of John Lydon getting into a screaming match with one of the Ramones about how the Ramones weren't punk and the Sex Pistols were punk, and it was just ugly, and Henry Rollins was there, and I was surprised he didn't hurt everybody, because he was like, you guys are all drunk assholes, but so I just, I was digging into a bit of the Ramones a bit, and my wife is a huge Ramones fan, and I have to remind myself every once in a while that the Ramones are much better than I give them credit for. And I don't know why. I don't know why I glaze over the punk genre too much, even though I like so much music that was spawned by the punk genre. So anyway, that's these guys, I think. So all their songs, they kind of fit in, to like this sound. The reason I picked this one is because this is off an album that was issued by Ipecac Records. They only did one album, I think, with Ipecac. Their other albums, I think, were with, I forget who it was, like a larger, like Interscope or something like that, label like that. But so almost all of their titles are a joke. Like this song is, the album title is Hard On, which is an obvious reference to an erection, but it's about the heart and it's about love. And almost all their songs are about sex and love and women and leather and boots and hotel rooms and danky bars. And these guys are kind of famous for their concert got shut up by some terrorists in France. at the Bataclan nightclub about 5 years ago.
Oh, I remember.
These are the
that,
guys.
Yes. Oh,
Yeah,
wow.
Yeah.
Right. Ooh.
These are them dudes.
Oh,
So,
right. Okay. Right.
I don't know what that's to do with listening. I just put everybody in a weird mood now.
Well, yes. Yeah. Well, it's good to know. It's good to know what we're going to be listening to.
So the song we're going to go with off of Hard On is the second track. I think it was probably the single on the album or the most popular one. I'm looking at the picture on Ipecac or on Bandcamp has the sticker like as if they were like advertising on there, and it says includes the single "Wanna Be in LA." So it looks like it was the first single on the record. But yeah, it's a great song. I spent far more time talking about it than the length of the song. And it's one of those songs you love it or hate it kind of thing, or you're in the mood for it or you're not. But yeah, anyway. So, Wanna Be in LA by the Eagles of Death Metal off their album Heart On.
Yes. I see what you mean about wanting to dance. If I was in any condition, I would have danced to that. Yes, I would have got up and boogied around. But you know, these old bones don't boogie anymore. Yeah, that was great. I really enjoyed that. A lot of the sort of Queens of the Stone Age stuff and associated penumbra therein connected to kind of leaves me cold, to be honest. There's a couple of Queens of the Stone Age albums I've got and I really like, but a lot of it it just goes past me. You know, it doesn't really hit me. That got me. I love the way that they took the groove, the music of the groove, and sort of did that little sort of semitone slide just to let you know this is not just straightforward blues rocky kind of stuff. I love that, but more than that, I love the arrangement. I loved the fact that they started off with the skankiest, most useless sounding guitars, as if they were played through the cheapest amp they could find. You know, we would call it over here a Woolworths amp. You know, just really useless. And then, but this wonderful bass comes in with this big sort of furry overcoat on. And you go, oh, that's why they left those guitars like that, because the bass is carrying that side of it. So now it works. Now you've got these little guitars with this big bass, and you're thinking the bass is in a fuzzy overcoat and it's kind of heavy. And then they just pile in with that absolutely crazy Velcro ripping fuzz, you know, that on the guitar. And it's almost as though at that point they know how good it is. So they don't need to give a fuck anymore. They can just have fun with it. And the double track vocals, I always think it's a great idea if you hit on a good vocal like that, double track them, because it gives them a kind of solidity and permanence that they wouldn't otherwise have. And they've got little bits of backing vocals and things in there as well, all in 2 minutes and 15 seconds. Absolutely perfect, nearly perfect pop. I would say the only thing that makes it not perfect pop is that it's by a band called the Eagles of Death Metal, which is probably why they called themselves the Eagles of Death Metal, so that people wouldn't expect them to be anything other than just, you know, a madcap frolic through 2 minutes of pop. I really like that. I shall listen to the rest of the album and see what I think of it. And I don't know, I might purchase it. I don't know. I mean, I might. You know,
you never know. There.
Yeah, it was great. I loved that.
I'm glad you did. And it's one of those things that like I'm almost never sitting around thinking like I need to listen to the Eagles of Death Metal. But every time I hear them, I'm always like, man, these guys are great. Like I don't know why they're not bigger. I feel like they should be bigger than Queens of the Stone Age, because they have, to me, a more approachable sound. Like you said, the Queens of the Stone Age can kind of go past you. And I find myself too, I have to work. For the last 3 albums, I've had to work to enjoy the Queens of the Stone Age albums, whereas there's no work to that. That's an immediate, like, get on board and you're on.
Yeah, that's the poppier side of it, but it sounds to me like they're having a lot of fun just doing it and not really caring about, you know, whether it fills an arena or a stadium or something. Whereas the day job is Queens of the Stone Age, and that has to fill a stadium. True, because that's where they are, you know, and that makes things a lot heavier for people, you know. It that can come across in the music. So yeah, if the rest of the album's like this, it should be. I noticed they've got a track called "I'm Your Torpedo." We must have got a track that we must play one day called "Torpedo," which we could maybe set up with that. "I'm Your Torpedo." We could have a double torpedo episode.
I'm in.
So next up, we're going to go with a band from Portland, Oregon. They're called The Mercury Tree. I've got a couple of their CDs. They're really, really good. This album is called Countenance. It was released back in 2014, recorded in 2013, I think. The main guy in this band is a chap called Ben Spees. He plays guitar and keyboards and sings. You've got Connor Riley on drums and Oliver Campbell on bass. And they do a kind of progressive rock that, now that I'm getting into the Porcupine Tree stuff, I can see that there's an equivalence there. But I think this is harder edged. This has got more of a kind of it's got a cleaner production in a lot of ways, and a less fussy and ambient production than what Porcupine Tree uses. It's a bit harder edged. Yeah. So that's one way to describe it, I suppose. But yeah, so we're going to go with that. We'll get on with it. So this is Pitchless Tone by the Mercury Tree from their album Countenance.
Pitchless Tone. That was good. I really, really like that. The Mercury Tree. So I had never heard of them before. It's all new to me. But that was just fantastic. That was absolutely fantastic. I really enjoyed that. There was, obviously, you're right on the head with the Porcupine Tree comparisons. The vocals are a little different, but the music, that easily could have been a Porcupine Tree song, even the way it was produced. It had the same timbre and everything. So I'm guessing he's probably a fan of Porcupine Tree by the sounds of it, but has his own thing. But the other band I'm hearing in there a lot is King Crimson. You know, the cyclical guitar work and the tenacity of the drums and the walking, wandering bass lines. Like I could picture Tony Levin playing the bass there, and I could picture Bill Bruford playing those drums. I could picture, it was, but I don't know. It was great. I love the back and forth. I love the bounciness of it. I love the push and the pull of everything. It was excellently executed, and I'm surprised I haven't heard that before. Like it sounds like something I should have in my record collection. I'm going to now, or at least their MP3s if I can't find a physical medium that I, do they have CDs on for sale here? I don't know if I even see it. Oh, yeah, they do. $10.
Yeah, they do. Yeah. I've got a couple of their CDs. Yeah, so yeah, I thoroughly recommend them. They're really well produced. They sound great. They sound better than that even.
Nice. Yeah, so you say you have one of their CDs, you say, or a couple of them?
Yeah, I've got a couple of them,
yeah.
A couple of those CDs, and I have some other ones by their other things they're involved in, which we'll get to.
Nice. Yeah, that was absolutely wonderful. That's a great way to cap off the show, I'd say.
But I would say so, yes.